Jake Martinez walked through the metal halls of the Galactic Military Academy. The walls were white and clean, reaching high above his head. Strange symbols from different alien languages covered the signs. He could read some of them now after 6 months of study. The Academy sat on Zentrix Prime, a planet with 2 purple suns. Jake had never seen anything like it back on Earth. The gravity felt lighter here, making each step feel like a small bounce. The air tasted different too, with a hint of metal that reminded him of old coins. Other students moved past him in the hallway. They came from all over the galaxy. The Vorthak looked like walking crystals, their bodies clear and sharp. Light moved through them like water. When they talked, their voices sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Jake had learned not to stare, but it was hard not to watch the patterns of light dancing inside their crystal skin. The Catalians had 6 arms each and moved like dancers. Their skin was dark blue with silver spots. They could spin and twist, in ways that made Jake dizzy just watching. Their weapons training always drew crowds because they moved so fast their arms became blurs. Then there were the Narathi, who never spoke out loud. They talked with their minds, sending thoughts directly into other people's heads. Jake found this creepy at first. When a Narathi student first spoke in his mind, he jumped and spilled his lunch all over the floor. The other students had laughed, but not in a mean way. Jake was one of only 12 humans at the Academy. Earth had just joined the galactic community 5 years ago. Most alien races saw humans as new and primitive. They were not wrong about the new part. Human technology was simple compared to what other races had built over thousands of years. In this weapons class, Jake watched other students practice with energy swords that could cut through solid metal. The Vorthak used crystal weapons that fired beams of pure light. The Narathi could make weapons appear out of thin air just by thinking about them. Jake carried a simple projectile rifle that shot metal bullets. It worked fine, but it looked like a toy next to alien weapons. The Academy's most feared teacher was Commander Thex 9. He came from the Zephyrian Empire, a race of tall, reptile-like beings with gray scales and yellow eyes. Thex 9 had conquered 7 star systems for his empire. His voice could make the bravest student shake with fear. When he walked into a room, everyone went silent. Jake was eating lunch in the main hall when the announcement came. The hall was huge, with tables that could seat 1,000 students. The ceiling showed a view of space above the planet, with stars slowly moving across a dark purple sky. "Attention, all students," Commander Thex 9's voice boomed through the speakers. "Report to Training Hall 7 immediately. Full gear required." Jake grabbed his rifle and ran with the others. Training Hall 7 was where they tested dangerous weapons. The walls were thick metal designed to contain explosions. Jake had seen holes in those walls from previous tests that had gone wrong. Commander Thex 9 stood in the center of the hall. His tall frame cast a long shadow under the bright lights. His yellow eyes swept across the gathered students like a predator looking for weak prey. "Today you will be tested," he said. His voice echoed off the metal walls. "Each of you will demonstrate your race's greatest weapon innovation, but there is a catch." Jake felt his stomach drop. Commander Thex 9 loved his catches. They were never good news for students. "You will build your weapons using only materials from the maintenance section. No advanced components, no energy cores, no quantum processors, only basic maintenance supplies." The alien students looked at each other with worry. Jake saw Zara Prime, a Vorthak student, touch her crystal weapon nervously. Her people needed special crystals to focus their energy beams. Corv, a Catalian warrior, flexed his 6 arms. His race was famous for their metalworking skills, but they needed special alloys. "You have 4 hours, Commander Thex 9 continued. "The demonstration will be tomorrow at noon. Failure to present a working weapon will result in immediate dismissal from the Academy." Jake felt a strange calm come over him. While other students panicked, he started thinking. Humans had always been good at making weapons from whatever was around. On Earth, his grandfather had told him stories about old wars where soldiers made bombs from farm supplies and guns from scrap metal. The maintenance section was in the lower levels of the Academy. Jake followed the crowd of worried students down metal stairs that rang with each step. The maintenance area smelled like cleaning chemicals and machine oil. Shelves lined the walls, filled with bottles, tools, and spare parts for keeping the academy running. Other students grabbed items randomly, hoping to find something useful. Zara Prime looked lost without her crystals. Corv searched for metals strong enough for his blade-making techniques. The Narathi students stood in a circle, probably talking in their minds about what to do. Jake walked slowly through the aisles. He picked up a bottle of industrial cleaning fluid and read the label. The chemical was designed to remove burnt carbon from engine parts. It was highly flammable. He smiled and put the bottle in his collection basket. Next, he found pressurized containers used for spraying lubricants on academy machinery. They were about the size of fire extinguishers and had good pressure ratings. He took 3 of them. In the plumbing section, Jake found metal pipes of different sizes. Some were narrow, others wide enough to stick his fist through. He selected several pieces that would fit together. The connections were simple but strong. A small ignition device used for lighting maintenance torches caught his eye. It produced a steady flame and could be controlled with a simple switch. Jake added it to his growing collection. Other students watched him gather these basic supplies with confusion. Vel, his roommate from the Aquarian worlds, approached him. Vel looked like a large frog with blue-green skin and big round eyes. "Jake, what are you building?" Vel asked. His voice bubbled like water running over rocks. "Something that works," Jake replied. By the time the 4 hours ended, Jake had filled 2 baskets with supplies. He carried them back to his dorm room, while other students continued to panic in the maintenance area. Some had found nothing useful. Others had pieces that might work but no clear plan. Jake spread his materials on his desk and started sketching. The design was simple but effective. He had learned about flamethrowers in his military history classes back on Earth. The basic principle was easy. Mix fuel with air, ignite it, and direct the flame where needed. Vel watched from his bed as Jake drew diagrams and made calculations. "Your people have built weapons like this before?" Vel asked. "Many times," Jake said, not looking up from his work. "Humans have always been good at making the most of what we have." Outside their window, the 2 purple suns were setting. Tomorrow would bring the demonstration. Jake felt confident in his design, but he knew the real test would be proving that simple could beat sophisticated. He thought about his training instructor back on Earth, Colonel Lisa Hayes. She always said that fancy technology was useless if it did not work when needed. "Adapt, improvise, overcome," she would tell her students. That is the human way. Jake picked up the cleaning fluid bottle and shook it gently. Tomorrow he would show the galaxy what human ingenuity could accomplish. Jake woke up early the next morning. The purple suns were just starting to rise outside his window. Vel was still sleeping in his bed, making soft bubbling sounds. Jake quietly gathered his materials and headed to the workshop area. The academy. Workshop was already busy with students trying to finish their weapons. The air smelled like hot metal and burning electronics. Sparks flew from welding stations where Catalian students worked on their blade designs. The sound of hammering metal rang through the room. Jake found an empty corner away from the noise. He laid out his materials on a metal workbench. The cleaning fluid, pressurized containers, metal pipes, and ignition device looked simple compared to what other students were building. At the next table, Zara Prime was struggling with her crystal weapon. She had found some old light fixtures that contained small crystals, but they were not the right type for focusing energy beams. Her clear crystal hands shook as she tried to connect the pieces together. "This is impossible," she said to another, Vorthak student. "These crystals are too weak. They will shatter when I try to channel energy through them." Corv was having better luck with his blade project. His 6 arms moved like a machine as he shaped metal pieces into a complex sword design. But Jake could see the problem. The metal from the maintenance section was not strong enough for a real weapon. It would bend or break in actual combat. The Narathi students had given up trying to build anything physical. They sat in a circle, with their eyes closed, probably trying to create mental weapons. Jake did not think Commander Thex 9 would accept a weapon that only existed in their minds. Jake started connecting his pipes together. The design was straightforward: a main chamber for mixing fuel and air, a smaller tube for directing the flame, and connections for the pressurized containers. He used simple clamps and seals from the maintenance supplies to hold everything together. Vel appeared at Jake's shoulder, carrying a cup of the Academy's bitter coffee. "You are working early," Vel said. His big round eyes studied Jake's assembly. "Want to get it right," Jake replied, tightening a clamp around a pipe joint. "Simple things still need to be done carefully." Vel watched as Jake connected the ignition device to the main chamber. "It does not look like any weapon I have seen before," Vel said. "That is the point," Jake said. He lifted the assembled device to check its weight. It was heavier than a rifle but lighter than most energy weapons. Other races try to make weapons more advanced. Humans try to make them more effective. Across the workshop, other students were running into problems. A group of insectoid students from the hive worlds had built something that looked like a giant mechanical bee stinger, but they could not find a power source strong enough to operate it. Some students from the machine collective had constructed what appeared to be a small robot. It moved around the table on tiny wheels, but Jake could not figure out what it was supposed to do as a weapon. It looked more like a toy than something for combat. Jake began testing his connections. He attached one of the pressurized containers and slowly released a small amount of cleaning fluid into the mixing chamber. The liquid had a sharp smell that made his eyes water. He quickly sealed the chamber and checked for leaks. "That smells dangerous," Vel said, backing away from the table. "Most good weapons do," Jake replied. He made a note about ventilation in his design journal. Fire weapons needed good airflow to work properly. Commander Thex 9 entered the workshop to check on student progress. His tall reptilian form moved between the tables like a predator hunting prey. Students went quiet when he approached their work areas. He stopped at Zara Prime's table first. She tried to demonstrate her crystal weapon, but the light beam that came out was weak and flickering. The modified crystals could not handle the energy she was trying to channel through them. "Pathetic," Commander Thex 9 said. His yellow eyes showed disappointment. "Your people have worked with crystals for 10,000 years, and this is the best you can do with basic materials?" Zara Prime's crystal skin turned a darker shade, which Jake had learned meant embarrassment for her species. She looked down at her failed weapon without speaking. Commander Thex 9 moved to Corv's table. The Catalian warrior demonstrated his blade by striking a practice target. The sword cut through the target but bent badly from the impact. The maintenance section metal was too soft for serious weapon use. "Better, but still inadequate," the commander said. "A weapon that breaks on first use is worse than no weapon at all." Jake continued working while Commander Thex 9 moved around the room. He was adjusting the fuel mixture ratio when the commander's shadow fell across his table. "Human Martinez," Commander Thex 9 said. His voice carried the tone he used when expecting to find fault. "Show me your progress." Jake set down his tools and gestured to his device. "It is a directed flame projector, sir. Simple but effective." "Commander." Thex 9 examined the assembled pipes and containers. His scaled fingers traced the connections between components. "This appears to be plumbing equipment," he said. "Yes, sir. Converted for a different purpose." "And you believe this collection of maintenance supplies constitutes a weapon worthy of demonstration at this academy?" Jake met the commander's yellow eyes without flinching. "I believe it will complete the mission, sir." Commander Thex 9 stared at Jake for a long moment. Other students in the workshop had stopped working to watch the interaction. The room was silent except for the hum of ventilation fans. "We shall see," the commander finally said. He moved on to the next table, leaving Jake to continue his work. Vel let out a breath Jake had not realized he was holding. "You are either very brave or very foolish," Vel said quietly. "Maybe both," Jake admitted. He returned to work on his fuel delivery system. The morning passed quickly. Jake tested each component of his weapon separately before connecting everything together. The pressurized containers delivered fuel at the right rate. The ignition system produced a steady flame. The mixing chamber combined fuel and air in the proper ratio. Other students were having mixed results. A few had managed to create working weapons, but most were struggling with the limitations of basic materials. The workshop filled with frustrated voices and the sounds of failing equipment. Jake made his final adjustments as the noon demonstration time approached. His flamethrower was complete but untested. He had run out of time to conduct a proper fire test in the workshop. The real test would come in front of Commander Thex-9 and the entire class. He carefully carried his weapon toward the training amphitheater. Other students followed with their own creations. Some looked confident, others worried. Jake felt calm. He had built exactly what he intended to build. The amphitheater was a large round room with thick metal walls. Targets of different types were arranged in the center. Some were armored dummies designed to test penetration weapons. Others were energy barriers meant to challenge beam weapons. A few were mobile targets that moved in random patterns. Spectators filled the viewing areas above the arena floor. Jake spotted other human students from the academy, plus military observers from various alien races. Word of the unusual weapons test had spread throughout the academy. Commander Thex-9 stood in the center of the arena. Students will demonstrate their weapons in order of species seniority, he announced. Vorthak students first, then Catalians, followed by others. Jake would go near the end of the list. Humans were among the newest species at the academy. He used the waiting time to double-check his weapons' connections and fuel levels. Zara Prime went first with her modified crystal weapon. She managed to produce a weak energy beam that barely scratched the armored targets. The demonstration lasted less than 30 seconds before her crystals overheated and stopped working. Korv followed with his blade demonstration. He attacked the targets with impressive speed and skill, but his soft metal sword bent and chipped with each strike. By the end of his demonstration, the weapon was nearly useless. Other students had similar results. Their weapons either failed to work properly or proved too weak for real combat use. A few managed adequate demonstrations, but nothing impressive. Jake watched each failure and success, learning what the targets could withstand. When his turn finally came, he felt ready. He picked up his flamethrower and walked to the center of the arena. The amphitheater fell quiet as Jake took his position. His simple weapon looked crude compared to the sophisticated devices other students had attempted to build. But Jake knew that simple did not mean ineffective. He aimed his flamethrower at the first row of targets and prepared to show the galaxy what human engineering could accomplish. Jake stood in the center of the arena holding his homemade flamethrower. The metal floor was cold under his boots. Bright lights from above made everything look sharp and clear. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him from the viewing areas. Human. Martinez, Commander Thex-9 announced, his voice echoing through the amphitheater. You may begin your demonstration. Jake checked his weapon one final time. The fuel containers were full. The ignition system showed ready. The mixing chamber connections were tight. Everything looked good. He aimed at the first target, an armored dummy designed to test energy weapons. The dummy was made from the same metal used in spaceship hulls. Other students had barely scratched its surface with their attempts. Jake squeezed the trigger mechanism he had built into the handle. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the ignition system fired and a stream of burning fuel shot from the nozzle. The flame was longer than Jake had expected. It reached 30 feet across the arena floor, a bright orange-yellow tongue of fire that roared like an angry dragon. The sound was different from energy weapons, which usually made clean zapping or humming noises. This was raw and primitive and loud. The armored dummy disappeared inside the flame. Jake held the trigger for 5 seconds, then released it. Went here. The fire died away. The dummy was gone. In its place was a puddle of melted metal on the arena floor. The amphitheater was completely silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Even the ventilation fans seemed to have stopped. He moved to the second target, an energy barrier designed to stop beam weapons. Most alien races use these shields to protect their important buildings and spaceships. The barrier glowed blue and hummed with power. Jake fired again. The flame struck the energy barrier and passed right through it like the shield was not there. The barrier was designed to deflect energy beams and stop projectiles, but it had no defense against burning liquid fuel. The fire consumed the generator. behind the shield, and the barrier winked out of existence. Now Jake heard sounds from the viewing areas, quiet gasps and whispers in a dozen alien languages. Some spectators were moving forward in their seats for a better look. Others were backing away. The third target was a mobile dummy that moved in random patterns around the arena. Other students had trouble hitting it with precise weapons like energy beams or thrown blades. Jake aimed his flamethrower and waited for the target to move into range. When the mobile dummy rolled close enough, Jake triggered a short burst of flame. The fire spread wide enough to catch the target even though it was moving. The dummy stopped rolling and began to melt into the floor like the first one. Jake turned to face Commander Thex 9. The tall reptilian officer was staring at the puddles of melted metal that had been test targets just moments before. His yellow eyes showed an expression Jake had never seen on the commander's face before. "The weapon appears functional," Commander Thex 9 said. His voice was quieter than usual. "Continue the demonstration." Jake moved to the next set of targets. These were designed to test different aspects of weapon effectiveness. There were barriers made from different materials, moving targets of various sizes, and obstacles that required weapons to fire around corners. For each challenge, Jake's flamethrower provided a simple solution. Barriers burned away. Moving targets could not escape the wide spread of flame. Obstacles became useless when fire flowed around them like liquid. The most impressive moment came when Jake demonstrated the weapon's area denial capability. He fired a continuous stream of flame across a 20-foot section of the arena floor. The metal glowed red-hot and stayed that way for several minutes. Nothing could cross that area without being burned. Other students had built weapons that could hit single targets with precision. Jake's weapon could deny entire areas to enemy forces. It was a completely different approach to combat that most alien races had never considered. Vel was sitting in the student viewing section with his big round eyes wide with amazement. Next to him, other Aquarian students were whispering in their bubble-like language. Aquarians feared fire more than most species because of their water-based biology. In the military observer section, officers from different alien races were taking notes and talking quietly among themselves. Jake recognized uniforms from the Galactic Defense Council and several major military powers. Word of his demonstration was clearly reaching important people. Zara Prime sat with the other Vorthak students. Her crystal skin showing patterns Jake had learned meant deep thought. Among her people, the Vorthak had spent thousands of years perfecting energy weapons that required precise control and sophisticated technology. Jake's crude fire weapon challenged everything they believed about advanced warfare. Corv and the other Catalian students were flexing their multiple arms in agitation. Catalians prided themselves on weapon craftsmanship and martial skill. To see such devastating results from a device built with maintenance supplies clearly disturbed their sense of military order. The Narathi students sat motionless with their eyes closed. Jake wondered what kind of mental conversation they were having about his demonstration. Their telepathic weapons required intense concentration and mental discipline. His flamethrower just required pointing and pulling a trigger. Commander Thex 9 gestured toward a final group of targets at the far end of the arena. "Demonstrate maximum range and duration," he ordered. Jake aimed carefully and fired a long burst. The flame reached across the arena and struck targets 40 feet away. He held the trigger for 15 seconds, showing that his fuel supply could sustain extended combat use. When he finally stopped firing, a line of melted targets marked the weapon's effective range. The demonstration was over. Jake lowered his flamethrower and looked around the arena. Scorch marks covered the metal floor. Puddles of melted metal marked where targets had been destroyed. The air smelled like burning chemicals and hot metal. He had proven his point completely. While other students had built sophisticated weapons that barely worked, he had created a simple device that exceeded all performance requirements. The flamethrower was reliable, effective, and built from materials anyone could find. Commander Thex 9 approached Jake across the arena floor. His boots made sharp clicking sounds on the metal. When he reached Jake, he stopped and studied the human student with his predator eyes. "Human Martinez," he said formally. "Explain to the class how your species developed such direct approaches To warfare. Jake looked up at the viewing areas filled with alien students and military observers. A few months ago, they had seen him as a primitive newcomer from a backward planet. Now they were waiting to hear what he had to say about human military thinking. My people learned to survive by using whatever we could find, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater's sound system. We did not have advanced technology like other races. We had to make simple things work better. He gestured toward his flamethrower. This weapon uses the same principle humans discovered thousands of years ago. Fire burns things. It is simple, but it works every time. Commander Thex 9 nodded slowly. And this represents typical human military philosophy? Yes, sir. We call it adapt, improvise, overcome. Take what you have and make it work. Do not wait for perfect conditions or ideal equipment. Use what is available and get the job done. The commander turned to address the viewing areas. Students, observe that effectiveness matters more than sophistication. Human Martinez has demonstrated that simple solutions can outperform complex ones when properly applied. Jake felt a surge of pride, not just for himself but for his entire species. He had proven that humans belonged at the Galactic Military Academy. More importantly, he had shown that human thinking could contribute something valuable to galactic warfare. As he walked off the arena floor carrying his flamethrower, Jake heard the sounds of excited conversation from the viewing areas. Students and observers were discussing what they had seen in dozens of different languages. Tomorrow, he knew, everything would be different. The demonstration had changed how aliens saw humans and how humans saw themselves in the galaxy. Simple had beaten sophisticated, and everyone had learned something important about the nature of effective warfare. The amphitheater stayed quiet for a full minute after Jake finished his demonstration. Students and military observers stared at the melted remains of targets scattered across the arena floor. The scorch marks on the metal told a story that no one had expected to see. Commander Thex 9 broke the silence first. Clear the arena for evaluation, he ordered. Academy maintenance robots rolled onto the floor to clean up the melted metal and prepare for the next class. Jake carefully powered down his flamethrower and checked the fuel levels. He had used about half his supply during the demonstration. The weapon had performed exactly as designed, maybe even better. The range had exceeded his calculations, and the destruction was more complete than he had hoped for. Students began filing out of the viewing areas, but they moved slowly and talked in hushed voices. Jake noticed that many of them kept looking back at him as they left. The way they looked at him had changed completely from this morning. Vel appeared at Jake's side as he packed up his equipment. The Aquarian's blue-green skin was paler than usual, and his large eyes showed worry. Jake, that was terrifying, Vel said quietly. I have never seen anything destroyed so completely. How did you know it would work so well? I did not know for sure, Jake admitted. But humans have been using fire as a weapon for a very long time. It usually works. Zara Prime approached them from across the arena. Her crystal skin was flickering with nervous light patterns. She had never spoken directly to Jake before today, always considering humans too primitive for conversation. Human, Martinez, she said formally. I must ask about your weapon design. My people have studied energy projection for 10,000 years. We believed that precise control was necessary for effective combat weapons. Your device shows no precision control at all, yet it proved more effective than our most advanced systems. Jake looked at her crystal features, trying to read the light patterns that showed Vorthak emotions. She seemed genuinely confused rather than angry or jealous. Precision is useful when you need to hit exact targets, Jake explained. But sometimes, you want to hit everything in an area. Fire spreads, that can be good or bad depending on what you need. Zara Prime's crystal skin showed the deep blue patterns that meant serious thinking among her people. Your species chooses effectiveness over elegance. We choose what works, Jake said simply. Corv joined their conversation, his 6 arms moving in the gestures that showed respect among Catalian warriors. Like Zara Prime, he had never bothered talking to Jake before today. Human, your weapon requires no skill to operate, Corv said. His voice carried the musical tone typical of his species. Any soldier could use it effectively. This troubles me. Why does that trouble you? Jake asked. Catalian weapons require years of training to master. They separate skilled warriors from common soldiers. Your weapon eliminates that distinction. Jake thought about this for a moment. On Earth, we think it is better when weapons are easy to use. That way, more people can defend themselves when needed. Corv's arms moved in patterns that showed confusion mixed with grudging respect. Your species values different things than mine. More students gathered around Jake as word of the demonstration spread through the academy. Species that had never shown interest in humans were now asking questions about Earth military history and weapon design philosophy. A group of Narathi students approached, moving with their usual silent grace. One of them spoke directly into Jake's mind, which still felt strange after months at the academy. Human Martinez, we observe that your weapon requires no mental discipline or psychic focus, yet it proved more destructive than our thought-based weapons. How do your people view the relationship between mind and warfare? Jake had to think carefully about how to answer a telepathic question. We think that simple weapons work better in stressful situations. When people are scared or tired, complex weapons become harder to use. Simple weapons keep working. The Narathi students exchanged mental communications that Jake could not hear. Their leader spoke in his mind again. This is wisdom we had not considered. Mental weapons fail when concentration is broken. Physical weapons continue to function, regardless of psychological state. Academy staff began arriving in the amphitheater to examine the damage from Jake's demonstration. Engineers measured the scorch marks and analyzed the melted metal. Security officers asked questions about fuel storage and safety procedures. Dr. Kenth, the Academy's head weapons instructor, approached Jake with a data pad in her tentacled hands. She was from the scholarly Tenthari species, known for their careful study of military technology. Student Martinez, she said in her careful, precise voice, I need technical specifications for your device. Range, fuel consumption, operational temperature, and safety protocols. Jake pulled out his design notebook and shared his calculations. Dr. Kenth studied the numbers with her large compound eyes. These figures suggest your weapon could be mass-produced at very low cost, she said. Most military weapons require rare materials or complex manufacturing processes. Your design uses common industrial supplies available on any civilized world. That was part of the idea, Jake said. Humans learned to fight with whatever we could find. Dr. Kenth made notes on her data pad. The Galactic Defense Council will want to review this technology. Weapons that can be produced quickly and cheaply have strategic importance during large-scale conflicts. Jake felt a chill at those words. He had built the Flamethrower to pass a class assignment, not to change galactic warfare. The idea that his simple weapon might be used in real wars was both exciting and scary. Commander Thex-9 returned to the arena after consulting with the military observers. His expression was harder to read than usual, but Jake sensed that something important had changed in the commander's attitude. Human Martinez, report to my office at 1600 hours, Commander Thex-9 ordered. Bring your weapon and all design documentation. The commander's office was on the top level of the academy, with windows that looked out over the alien landscape of Zentrix Prime. Jake had never been there before. Students only got called to the commander's office when they were in serious trouble or had done something exceptional. Jake spent the rest of the day answering questions from other students and academy staff. Everyone wanted to know about human, military history, Earth weapon development, and the philosophy behind simple but effective designs. Some questions were technical. How hot did the flame burn? What other fuels could the weapon use? Could the design be scaled up for vehicle mounting or scaled down for personal use? Other questions were more philosophical. Why did humans prefer simple weapons over sophisticated ones? How did Earth societies view the relationship between technology and military effectiveness? What other innovative approaches might humans bring to galactic warfare? Jake answered as best he could, but he realized that he was speaking for his entire species. His words would be recorded and studied by alien military analysts. His demonstration would influence how the galaxy viewed human capabilities. When 1600 hours arrived, Jake walked to Commander Thex 9's office carrying his flamethrower and design notes. He knocked on the metal door and waited for permission to enter. "Come," the commander's voice called from inside. Jake entered the office and saw that Commander Thex 9 was not alone. Several high-ranking military officers from different species sat around a conference table. Jake recognized uniforms from the Galactic Defense Council, the Vorthak Crystal Guard, and the Catalian warrior houses. "Human Martinez," Commander Thex 9 said formally. "These officers wish to discuss your weapon demonstration. Answer their questions truthfully and completely." Jake set his flamethrower on the table and prepared to explain human warfare to the leaders of galactic military forces. His simple class project had become something much bigger than he had ever imagined. Jake sat at the conference table surrounded by some of the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy. The office felt smaller, with so many important people in it. Commander Thex 9 gestured for Jake to place his flamethrower on the table where everyone could examine it. General Vex Prime of the Vorthak Crystal Guard spoke first. Her crystal body was larger and more complex than student Vorthak's, with intricate patterns that showed her high rank. When she talked, her voice sounded like music made from breaking glass. "Human Martinez, your weapon demonstration has raised important questions about military doctrine throughout the galaxy. We need to understand how your species approaches warfare so differently from established methods." Jake looked around the table at alien faces that could decide the fate of star systems. He thought about Colonel Hayes back on Earth and what she would tell him to do in this situation. "Be honest, be clear, and remember that you represent all of humanity." "Generals, my people have always had to fight for survival," Jake began. "We did not have advanced technology like your races. We learned to use whatever was available and make it work." Admiral Korath of the Catalian warrior houses leaned forward with all 6 arms resting on the table. His dark blue skin showed the silver scars that marked veteran warriors of his species. "Young human, your weapon requires no skill to operate effectively. This concerns us. Warfare should separate trained warriors from common civilians. How do your people maintain military discipline if anyone can wield deadly weapons?" Jake thought carefully about his answer. "Sir, we believe that effective defense requires everyone to be able to fight when necessary. Training is important, but simple weapons allow more people to contribute to protection." A new voice joined the conversation. Colonel Nethys of the Yao Galactic Defense Council was from the Tenthari species, with multiple tentacles instead of arms and large compound eyes. She was known for her strategic thinking. "Student Martinez, your demonstration suggests that human military thinking focuses on practical results rather than technological advancement. Can you explain this philosophy?" "Yes, ma'am. Humans learned that the most advanced weapon is useless if it breaks down or runs out of power when you need it most. Simple weapons keep working under bad conditions." General Vex Prime's crystal features showed the light patterns that meant deep consideration. "Your flamethrower can be built by any competent technician using common materials. This has strategic implications we must consider." Commander Thex 9 activated a holographic display showing galactic military statistics. Current weapon production requires specialized facilities and rare materials. Human-style weapons could be manufactured quickly during wartime emergency conditions. Jake realized that his simple class project was being discussed as a potential game-changer for galactic warfare. The idea was both thrilling and frightening. Admiral Korath asked, "What other innovative approaches might your species contribute to military thinking?" "Sir, humans are good at adapting to different situations. We do not try to make one perfect weapon. We make many different simple weapons that work well for specific jobs." Colonel Nethys made notes on her data pad with 2 tentacles while asking, "Can you provide examples of this adaptive approach?" Jake thought about human military history. "On Earth, we have weapons for different distances, different environments, and different targets. Close combat, long range, underwater, in space, against armor, against buildings. Each situation gets tools designed for that specific job. Most galactic races try to perfect one type of weapon system. General Vex Prime observed. Your species creates many specialized tools instead. Yes, ma'am. We think it is better to have the right tool for each job than one tool that does everything poorly. The discussion continued for 2 hours. The military leaders asked detailed questions about human tactics, strategy, and weapon design philosophy. Jake answered as well as he could, drawing on his military training and the stories his grandfather had told him about Earth Wars. When the meeting finally ended, Commander Thex-9 dismissed the other officers and asked Jake to remain behind. The commander's yellow eyes studied Jake with an expression the human student had never seen before. Human Martinez, your demonstration today has changed how the galaxy views your species. Are you prepared for the consequences? Jake thought about the question carefully. Sir, I just wanted to pass the weapons test. I did not expect this much attention. Your simple flamethrower has impressed military leaders who have seen every advanced weapon in the galaxy. They are requesting human advisors for their weapon development programs. Your people are about to become very important in galactic military affairs. The weight of responsibility settled on Jake's shoulders. What does that mean for me, sir? It means you will graduate from this academy with the highest honors. It also means you will probably spend your career teaching other species about human military thinking. Commander Thex-9 moved to the window and looked out at the alien landscape. I have conquered 7 star systems using advanced Zephyrian weapons technology. Today, a human student showed me that simple solutions can be more effective than sophisticated ones. This is a valuable lesson. Jake joined the commander at the window. The 2 purple suns were setting, casting strange shadows across the academy grounds. Sir, do you think this will change how wars are fought in the galaxy? Perhaps. Your species has introduced new concepts that challenge established military doctrine. Change is often uncomfortable, but it can also be necessary. A communication device on the commander's desk chimed with an incoming message. Commander Thex-9 checked the display and showed it to Jake. Message from Earth Command, the commander said. They have heard about your demonstration. Colonel Hayes sends her congratulations. Jake smiled as he read the message from his old instructor. She had written, Outstanding work, Martinez. You have shown the galaxy what human ingenuity can accomplish. Make us proud out there. Over the following days, Jake's life at the academy changed completely. Students who had ignored him before now sought him out for conversations about human military history. Instructors asked him to guest lecture in their classes about adaptive warfare strategies. The Academy's Weapons Development Lab requested permission to study his flamethrower design. They wanted to understand how humans approached the engineering challenges of creating effective weapons from basic materials. Military observers from across the galaxy visited the Academy specifically to meet Jake and discuss human warfare concepts. Some offered him positions in their militaries after graduation. Others wanted to exchange students with Earth military academies. Zara Prime approached Jake one evening in the dining hall. Her crystal skin showed the warm golden patterns that meant friendship among her people. Jake, I have been thinking about our conversation after your demonstration. The Vorthak crystal. Guard has decided to study human weapon design principles. Would you be willing to serve as a consultant? I would be honored, Jake replied. But I am still just a student. I do not know if I am qualified to advise your military. You built a more effective weapon than I did using the same materials. That makes you more qualified than you think. Corv and several other Catalian students joined their table. The 6-armed warriors moved with their usual graceful precision, but their attitudes toward Jake had changed from dismissive to respectful. Human Jake, Corv said formally. The warrior houses wish to learn about adaptive combat techniques. Your people's approach to warfare offers lessons we had not considered. We would be honored to teach what we know, Jake replied. But Catalians are already among the finest warriors in the galaxy. We are skilled with traditional weapons and tactics, Corv admitted. But your demonstration showed us that effectiveness matters more than tradition. This is wisdom we need to learn. Dr. Kent arrived at their table carrying a data pad filled with technical specifications. Student Martinez, I have completed the analysis of your weapon design. The Galactic Defense Council has classified it as a strategic technology. They want to discuss licensing agreements with Earth. Jake realized that his simple flamethrower had become the first major technology transfer from Earth to the galactic community. Humans were no longer seen as primitive newcomers, but as innovative partners with valuable contributions to make. 3 months later, Jake graduated from the Galactic Military Academy with the highest honors in his class. The ceremony was attended by military leaders from dozens of species, all interested in learning more about human approaches to warfare. Commander Thex 9 presented Jake with his graduation certificate and the Academy's Medal of Innovation, the first ever awarded to a human student. Student Martinez, you came to this academy as a representative of a new species. You leave as a teacher who has expanded galactic understanding of effective warfare. Your species should be proud. After graduation, Jake was assigned to the Galactic Defense Council as a human military liaison. His job was to help integrate human tactical thinking into galactic military doctrine and to train alien officers in adaptive warfare strategies. On his first day at the new assignment, Jake received another message from Colonel Hayes. She had been promoted to general and appointed as Earth's first galactic military attaché. Jake, your academy demonstration opened doors for our entire species. Human military advisors are now serving with